Alrighty, so now we come to the final entry in the Star Wars prequel trilogy, Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. And this is kind of like my opinion of The Phantom Menace in that I think it's passable, but not anything really special. So, so, the story begins with it's during the Clone Wars which were first mentioned by an elder Obi-Wan Kenobi in Episode 4, like he and Anakin Skywalker fought in the Clone Wars together. They were like war buddies. So it takes place, I believe, 3 years after Attack of the Clones, and basically they're in the middle of the Clone Wars. I mean, and all of a sudden, the Chancellor of the Republic, played once again by Ian McDiarmid, is kidnapped by this cyborg general guy called General Grievous, who is working for the Confederacy, and he's under orders by Count Dooku. He was trained in lightsaber combat by Count Dooku. He's a very dangerous guy, presumably. So the Republic dispatches Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker to go and rescue the Chancellor. And soon Anakin Skywalker begins to doubt the Jedi's trust in him. He begins to think he's being treated unfairly, and this combined with nightmares / premonitions of his wife's impending death in childbirth eventually leads him to turn to the dark side and become Darth Vader and turn against the Jedi. I don't think I'm giving anything away by saying that. I mean, we've all known this would happen since the first Star Wars movie. So the acting is improved. I mean, just in terms of it's still not great, but it is improved. Ewan McGregor is still very good as Obi-Wan Kenobi. Again, he's kind of pushed to the side, but he's allowed to exude much more charm this time around. I mean, he's not quite the follower of rules. He's a bit more. What's the word? He kind of resembles Liam Neeson's character in a few ways, in that he takes situations in stride. He never. I mean, he's an example of one of his lines would be when General Grievous is kind of threatening him and Anakin Skywalker. He's like, try not to upset him, Anakin. We have a job to do. I mean, just fun little lines like that make it much more believable that he will eventually grow into the Alec Guinness Obi-Wan Kenobi in, I think, 20 years. So he's better this time around, and I ragged on Hayden Christensen a lot in the last review, but truth be told, in the first about 20 minutes to half an hour of this movie, when he's kind of working with Obi-Wan to infiltrate the droid spaceship, when he and Obi-Wan are just kind of bantering off each other, Hayden Christensen is actually not that bad. I mean, when he's working with Obi-Wan and kind of cleaning house with his lightsaber and basically he kind of resembles what you would expect Luke's dad to be. I mean, I mean, he's kind of fun. He's cocky. I mean, you can tell that he really you can sense a friendship there between him and Obi-Wan. But again, that's the first half hour. The rest of the movie, he goes back to this kind of mopey, whiny, moody type guy. It's not quite as laughable as Attack of the Clones, but still it's still a boat anchor. I mean, it still just makes you go, come on. I don't want to listen to this guy anymore. If you hear yelling in the background, that's my brother. He's playing a video game. But yeah, Hayden is improved, but not by much overall. I mean, when he finally turns to the dark side, it just seems like he's throwing another temper tantrum. It just seems like the same type of emotions he was going through when the Sand People killed his mom, or when he was trying to hit on Natalie Portman's character in the last movie. I mean, it just seems like one of those really moody, really unlikable, temperamental type episodes. I mean, you don't really buy the tragedy of it. It doesn't really have the impact that it should. But again, first half hour he's not bad. Rest of the time he's actually pretty bad. But who else? Frank Oz still does a decent job as Yoda, even though he's not really allowed to be a fun character anymore. I mean, he's just so dead serious. I can understand him being dead serious when the Jedi are getting slaughtered and they're trying to fight off the Emperor and Darth Vader, but when he's commending the Wookiees, I would have liked to see a bit more. I don't know. I would have liked to see a bit more charm, a little bit more lighthearted interaction between him and the Wookiees. Speaking of which, the Wookiees are back, and I really like these Wookiees. I really like the planet the Wookiees are on. They have these jungle treetops, tree houses, and they're kind of this warrior race. You see a whole army of Wookiees run up and basically tear apart the droids. It's actually kind of cool for the 30 seconds that it lasts. But the Wookiees are really cool. I like what they did with the Wookiees. I like the design. I like the fact that we saw more Wookiees than just Chewbacca. I like the fact that they weren't annoying, like in the Star Wars Christmas special, which I'll get to. Its day is coming. Probably tomorrow. Oh. Yeah, Peter Mayhew is back as Chewbacca. He's still alright, but again, he's pushed to the side. He's not given anything to do. At most, Chewbacca is just there in the background to be like, "Hey, I'm Chewbacca," and yeah, that's it. But probably my favorite performance in the movie is, well, not my favorite. My favorite is still Obi-Wan, but probably the most entertaining performance in the movie comes from Ian McDiarmid, who had very limited screen time in the last movie, but in this movie he is just so crazy and over the top. He steals every scene he is in. He's actually kind of awesome in how over the top and goofy he can be, because he doesn't even try to hide the fact that he's evil anymore. He's full on hammy, scenery chewing Emperor Palpatine at this point. Whenever he's trying to manipulate Anakin Skywalker, he kind of goes into this almost trance-like state where he's I'm trying to think of the type of crap he would say. I mean, he's like like you must embrace a larger view of the force, even the nature of the dark side. Use my knowledge, I beg you. And I mean, he's almost I don't want to say he's half asleep because he's not half asleep. You can tell he's really putting a lot into this performance, but it's almost like he's turned on by the concept of evil. He would say when Anakin has his lightsaber pointed at him, he's like, I would like to kill you, and the Emperor's like, I know you would. I can feel your anger. It gives you focus, makes you stronger. And but yeah, he'll be like that. But whenever when he's found out, when the Jedi come and try to defeat him, he immediately shifts to this really over the top, almost burp talk sounding. I mean, he sounds like a frog when he's just talking really low, but he'll kind of transform into this cackling Joker-like figure, where he's. I mean, he's. Oh my God, he is so fun to watch. Not only because of his performance, but because of the really over-the-top design they give him. Like, they gave him an over. I mean, you thought his design in Return of the Jedi was a little much, was a little too cartoonish. This one, he looks like a caricature of Magneto from X-Men. I mean, these really exaggerated wrinkles all around his face. His hairline is pushed way back, so it almost looks like his skull is there. He has these big bulging eyes. These big bulging yellow eyes. So he has his hood up. He's like, once more the Sith will rule the galaxy. Oh my God, he lights up every scene he's in. I mean, he chews the scenery, spits it back out, and then chews it up some more. Good God, he is so goofy in this movie. It's kind of like the really kind of entertaining, over the top performances that Willem Dafoe can give. Like remember the first Spider-Man movie when Willem Dafoe was being the Green Goblin, and he was kind of talking to himself in the mirror. It's kind of like that, but pushed up a few notches. I mean, Willem Dafoe was more subtle than this. But yeah, he's the best part of the movie right there. I mean, wow. But enough about him. Samuel Jackson is still flat. I mean, even in fact, no. He's flat most of the time. But when he's confronting the Emperor, he says these really uninspired, cliched lines, and he says them like in a really stilted way. I mean, he's like, I am going to end this once and for all. He has control of the Senate and the courts. He is too dangerous to be left alive. And it almost sounds like he's struggling not to use contractions when he's saying that, because Sam Jackson was not right for this role. And I don't know why he has a purple lightsaber, but whatever. But Natalie Portman is still, well, she's not quite, she's not as flat this time around, but she just seems so uninvested. I mean, it seems like all of her performances are about are about half as invested as they should be. Or all of her emotions are just only half there because she's supposed to be it doing these romantic scenes with Hayden again, but it just feels like this a little. It just looks like a little schoolgirl accepting an award. That's basically what it is. And whenever she's those are her happy scenes with Hayden. Her sad scenes with Hayden when he's telling her about his nightmares. It it's. They. She speaks in this really soft voice. It's very understated. It's not monotone anymore. I'll give her that. But it's. She just looks so. She just looks and sounds very bored. She doesn't really sound like she loves this guy. She doesn't. She sounds very bland. So it's a little hard to be invested when their marriage falls apart. And when Anakin turns to the dark side, she is not nearly as heartbroken as she should be. She's like, no, not Anakin. That's your reaction? Not Anakin. She followed this up with V for Vendetta, and that was a great movie. She gave a really awesome performance. She followed this up with a great movie like that. So maybe she was just rehearsing her lines and her scenes for V for Vendetta when she was filming this turd. But but what else? The designs are still very creative. I liked seeing how the clones have kind of evolved, at least from a design standpoint. The clones. I don't know why they're more effective than the stormtroopers because they're supposed to be the same type of troops, but whatever. The clones are. They have a bunch of paint on them. The ones that are stationed on the Wookiee planet in this big jungle planet, they're in this kind of camo armor. The ones stationed, like Obi-Wan's clone troopers, have these kind of yellow marks all over their armor. The ones stationed on the capital planet have these very blue designs on their armor. It really goes a long way to differentiate the levels and types of garrisons and chains of command in this army. So I like the designs of the clones and even the designs of the helmets. The helmets look more stormtrooper-esque than the last time. They're kind of. It shows that from a design standpoint, at least, they are kind of evolving into what we'll eventually see in the original trilogy. So that was interesting. At least, again, from a design standpoint, that was kind of an interesting little attention to detail. But okay, so the action scenes are far more plentiful this time around. There are. Let's see. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 4 lightsaber duels in the movie, and yet I did not care about any of them. I didn't care because they suffer the same. I mean, they suffer in the same way that the lightsaber duel at the end of Attack of the Clones suffered, in that it doesn't look like an actual sword fight. I mean, it doesn't really look like these guys are trying to kill each other. It looks like a dance. I mean, it looks like some kind of over-choreographed ballet. I mean, let's just take an example of a really good, very authentic sword fight. Sword fight in Rob Roy. That is one of the greatest movie sword fights ever. I mean, you can tell Liam Neeson and Tim Roth are trying to kill each other. And they get tired. I mean, every swing is directed with the express intent of killing their opponent or breaking their defenses. I mean, they're constantly lunging at each other, slashing at each other. And again, they get tired. They get cut up. And eventually, one of them actually goes down. What else? One of the sword fights are very good. The sword fight in The Princess Bride between Carrie Elways and Mandy Patinkin. Great sword fight, and yeah, you can tell that each of them knows how to use a sword. Each of them has a style of sword fighting. It's not quite as I don't want to say unrehearsed, but it's not quite as visceral as the sword fight in Rob Roy, because they're abiding by specific sword movements. I mean, but again, it looks fairly authentic in the sense that it doesn't look rehearsed. It doesn't look, and obviously it is rehearsed, but it doesn't look rehearsed. I mean, you can still tell that they are aiming for each other. They are aiming to defeat the other person. Here, the sword fights, they're just kind of twirling them around and connecting their swords without really ever attacking each other. I mean, there's one scene in the final sword fight. There's a bit in the final sword fight where Skywalker and Kenobi are just kind of twirling their lightsabers around without actually hitting each other, without their lightsabers actually connecting. They're just twirling around them like this, and I'm just like, one of you hit the other one. And sure enough, they hit it exactly the same time. I'm like, oh, come on, that looks so fake. And they move so fast. I mean, it's like something out of Dragon Ball Z. It just looks so... I mean, it doesn't look real at all. It doesn't look like they're trying to kill each other. It looks like they're matching steps. I mean, it looks like they're going over something that they've rehearsed probably 100 times. Doesn't look good. But actually, there was one action scene that I will admit was kind of well done, and that was the action scene between, or at least part of the action scene between Obi-Wan Kenobi and General Grievous. The lightsaber duel is ridiculous because General Grievous wields 4 lightsabers because he has 4 arms. And he's just kind of swinging them. It's this big blur of flashy colors. I mean, it just looks like they're overcompensating for the fact that McGregor had difficulty fighting a digital opponent. I don't know if that's what it was, but the sword fight was... Thankfully, it didn't go on for too long because he just kind of cut off his hands. like Kenobi chopped off Grievous's extra hands. But eventually they both lose their lightsabers and they engage in kind of a fist fight. And McGregor is getting thrown around. It's kind of like his fight with Jango Fett in Attack of the Clones. It doesn't reek of choreography. It looks very good. You can tell that each of them are sustaining damage. Mostly Obi-Wan, because he's fighting a cyborg. And yeah, they're using anything from their environment that they can to land one or two hits on the other person. So that was very well done, and it doesn't go on for too long. Like a lot like the Darth Maul fight, it goes on for just long enough before it gets old. So, but the same can't be said for the final lightsaber duel, because the other lightsaber duels, they're fairly short. They're fairly quick. But the final lightsaber duel, or lightsaber duels, because it's one duel at one location and one duel at another location. I'll explain. So Anakin Skywalker has become Darth Vader. He's killed all the Jedi. Obi-Wan goes to confront him. So they get out the lightsabers and start fighting on this lava planet because they needed a dramatic location. But at the same time, on the Republic capital planet, Yoda comes in and confronts the Emperor, and he's like, "You're going down, you are." And the Emperor's like, "Well, bring it on, Swamp Frog," and they start fighting. And their fight is mostly digital. I mean, no movement looks. Neither one of them looks real, because you got the little digital Yoda fighting an old CG version of Ian McDiarmid, because Ian McDiarmid, he's like 60. He's not gonna swing around and fight this little digital Muppet. But yeah, you got those two fights that last. It's just a straight half hour, or at least it seems like half an hour of just fighting, with minimal dialogue. I mean, it's just a half hour of fighting, and it gets so boring. It is. I mean, you wouldn't think a fight between two Jedi on a lava planet, as the mining complex on the lava planet is collapsing, you wouldn't think that would get boring, but it does. I mean, it goes on for way too long. Neither one of them shows any superiority over the other. Neither one of them say anything. The Yoda Emperor fight is basically an effects show. It's just this long stretch of the story just coming to a halt. I mean, it is so boring. It is so boring. I mean, good God. But with that said, it is very well shot, and some of the stunt work is kind of creative, like Skywalker and Kenobi kind of fight on this really thin pipe at one point, kind of fighting with one hand. The mining complex collapses, and they have to kind of fight while at the same time maneuvering up and up the mining complex so as not to fall in the lava. At one point, when Yoda and the Emperor are fighting in the Senate, Yoda takes one of the Senate chairs, spins it around with the Force, and tosses it at the Emperor. I mean, some of it is very creative, some of it is very well done. But at the same time, does it progress the story? Well, in a way, but I don't really think we needed a half hour of sword fighting to progress the story. I mean, it doesn't need to be a half hour of this. I mean, I mean, any drama that was built up at the beginning of the battle, you've lost at the end of the battle because it's just so long. It just goes on for so long that it's diminished. I mean, any suspense, any drama is just gone by the end of it because you're just so bored by this solid half hour of fighting. Ugh. To be honest, the movie's not as bad as I'm making it out to be. I mean, it's... aside from some pacing problems in the middle, namely the inconsistency. I mean, the beginning of the movie, it's very fast-paced. They're on this rescue mission, but then it just slows to this very sluggish middle half, and then it just ramps up again for the final half, for basically the last hour or so of the movie. So, the music is very good. I mean, in fact, if you listen to the music, and just don't watch any of the scenes, if you listen to the music is just so heartbreaking and just so tragic that you can buy the fall of Anakin Skywalker by the music alone. I mean, John Williams really brought his A game to all the Star Wars movies, really. I mean, I don't think even someone who hates all the prequel films can't really fault them on the music, because the music is very, very good. But again, is that really enough to save it? I don't know. It suffers from action scene overload, inconsistent pacing, and some narrative flaws, because really Anakin Skywalker's motivation for turning to the dark side is pretty weak. Like, oh, I have a few nightmares. I'm gonna betray everything that I've known for the past 13 years, in lieu of letting my wife possibly die. So that's kind of weak, but on the upside, the acting is somewhat improved. The designs still show plenty of creativity. The music is fantastic. So yeah, this is another Star Wars movie that's, in my opinion, kind of on the fence. I mean, if I had to rank it, I would probably put it on the same level as The Phantom Menace, which is eh. I mean, it's just eh. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on the supposed final link in the chain. But as I said when I started these, I was probably going to do a lot of expanded universe stuff and extra movies and or TV programs. So I might as well get the worst one out of the way. Next is the Star Wars Holiday Special.